What's up, everybody? It's Ryan J. Downey with NotFest.com. I am sitting here joined by one of my very good friends, one of my favorite people in this thing of ours, Mr. Caleb of the band Beartooth.
That is high.
What's up, man?
Just good to be talking to you again.
It's
It's
amazing.
been too long, at least in this capacity. We keep
Yeah.
up, but we haven't done this in way too long.
This is, I believe the kids refer to this as IRL.
Yeah.
And by the kids, I mean like when the internet started in
Sure.
the 1990s.
Yeah.
But, it's pretty crazy.
It's nuts. It's good to be back to it.
Yeah,
you know?
we're not on Zoom.
Yes.
We're not FaceTiming.
Yeah, it's cool. It's wild. It's a bit
weird.
surreal.
It's weird.
Yeah.
So, for you being someone who, you create arguably your best work in isolation. Everybody knows you rather famously play everything yourself, write everything yourself, produce everything yourself, go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that you were a little better suited than most to the pandemic initially, as far as not touring sucks, but being home, I'll write music. But at a certain point, I would imagine you maybe went a little crazier than most.
Yeah, exactly. It started and I was already in a wild place going into it. You know what I mean? We had some really, really big things happen within the band and just life stuff. And, life was already hitting really, really hard. And then, I had pretty much all the music written for the record, 90% of it. And all I had to do was write the lyrics and stuff. And so, pandemic happens and I'm like, okay, well, this is nothing different. We had already set aside time. I still believe we are literally one of the luckiest bands in that, with how the pandemic thing happened with us, because our last show of our cycle for disease was March 6th in Europe, in Germany. Flew home, everything shut down, and we had already planned on we were taking a lot of time
against
off.
It. Yeah.
We had to cancel a lot of radio shows and a lot of festivals and stuff. Yeah. But we had planned to take that time off, so we go into it, and I'm like, okay, this will probably only be a month, 2 months, whatever. I've already planned to take this time off anyway. Okay, I have to be home all the time. Not that much different. I don't go out too much. And then, that me thinking I'll be done with the record in 3 weeks turns into I barely remember the next 4 months at all. And then I'm like, what is happening with this record? Everything keeps getting canceled. There's nothing to finish the record for. There's nothing going on.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Nothing.
It's just,
so I'm just kind of aimlessly attempting to write and get this thing done. And it was a wild experience, but because you're so right. At the beginning, it was this is what I do.
Yeah.
This is literally my living is I am isolated, alone, and I write songs about what I'm dealing with emotionally. Seems like a great time to do it during a time when I'm being, told I need to stay home because it's mandatory. And then, obviously, things took a wild turn. But we got the record Below out of it, which is, I think lyrically that record really does kind of speak for itself about what I was going through. And even the fact that, I'm pretty distinctly made it known to, press and to, when talking about the record, that I don't really want to talk about those songs. I don't want to explain what they're about. That's which is a really hard thing to do when promoting a record, because that's kind of
but they're also not cloaked in mystery. You're pretty upfront about what's going on.
They're pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
But it was a wild time, to say the least.
Yeah, I was just talking about this with a mutual friend of ours the other day, but Fed Up is my all-time favorite Beartooth song.
Yes.
Of the catalog.
You told me that.
And
I really appreciate that.
That was one of the first things that really hooked me, where I was just and just the vibe and the it's something about what you do as Beartooth, and especially with this record, where you found this balance between the right amount of polish to be instantly accessible, but also this, I hate to say edge because that's almost like a tired word, but
no, I get what you mean.
It's it sounds like it could go off the rails in any second,
right?
But doesn't.
We kind of, I wanted to take kind of the Iowa approach, where it was expected that Slipknot was going to put out the radio album, and then they put out Iowa. You know what I mean? It was that's kind of what I was trying to be in that headspace with that record.
Yeah.
But it is a Beartooth record, so it's going to be, I write pop, pop choruses and stuff, but I was listening to a lot of Bay Area thrash and Metallica. A lot of Ride the Lightning. So
And
there's
there's
a lot
a lot
of
of
bum.
doomy stoner.
Yeah,
that's
and then a
stuck in that record.
ton of doom, a
Yeah.
ton of stoner.
And obviously,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's my number one subgenre.
Absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely.
So yeah, as soon as you threw some of those riffs in the old Dropbox, I might have had a little early sneak preview.
Yeah.
Just insanity, dude. Insanity.
I knew it was going to be up your alley for sure.
So it's funny you were talking about how the timing worked out. I mean, another fellow Midwesterner band vocalist, Mr. Levi Benton of Miss May I was speaking with him recently.
Mm-hmm.
They had planned to take a year off and did so before the pandemic. So right when the pandemic hit was going to be, they're like, okay, we took a year off, now we're going to get going again.
Oh, they took the year off before?
Yeah, they had the opposite
no.
in terms of serendipity.
And that's what I mean is that, why I genuinely feel really, really blessed and really lucky at the way stuff ended up for us, because there are so many bands I know and so many, great people out there in the music business that just got so hosed and, like that, where they just put out a record or were about to put out, their best work, and then pandemic. So, a record I think about, and, I mean, I'm sure, I think this record has the legs to, keep them moving, but Seaway, big vibe. So I'm a huge Seaway fan. Love that band. But they put out this record called Big Vibe that is one of my favorite, pop rock records of all time. It's so, so good. But, I feel like it was one of those records that it came out right at the beginning of the pandemic. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it's just kind of and they're Canadian, so it's they're stuck in that whole thing with not really being able to tour in the only place you could, which was the States, maybe. You know what I mean? And that happened to a ton of bands.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate. But yeah, the pandemic affected everybody in so many wild ways during for the music industry.
Indeed.
I mean, for every industry for sure, but the music and the entertainment business was the first one to shut down and the last one to open up.
I remember everybody
job to be doing,
watching Coachella like a hawk, and it was as soon as Coachella went down, everybody else was like, oh, okay, it's all going down.
Yeah.
I remember there was a day where it was well, venues with a capacity of 250 or under can stay open. It's
dude,
it
was so
that's not
wild.
Gonna do it.
Dude, I remember when we went out on our first, run back with Wage War in August, September last year. Dude, we were the first show in a ton of those venues. This venue, when we're playing tonight, Anaheim House of Blues, we were their first show back in August. And it was just the energy. It was nothing I've ever felt before. Indescribable. I mean, the closest I can get to telling a story that describes it was the first show was at the House of Blues in Vegas. And the first band is starting, and I'm over on the side of the stage. Lights go down, and the crowd roars. And I'm just standing there and being like, okay, let's watch the show. Done this a million times. And I just start uncontrollably just bawling my eyes out. It was this weird, just visceral, emotional, all of this stuff that all this stress that I didn't even. It really showed me the power of the subconscious, for real, how deep we can bury stuff as humans. You know what I mean? It was going into that, I was just okay, I'm really nervous. I'm really, I'm feeling all these emotions. And then the crowd goes, and all I could think was just this, explosion of all this stress coming out of me. So, to me, that to me was, the best example of what it felt like, coming back out of it.
Yeah.
And, so, yeah, all in all, I'm just saying that it's so hard to describe what this was like. You know what I mean? Especially for the bands that really got hit by it.
Yeah.
We somehow, we got hit, yes, but we just got super lucky with our timing. But yeah, other bands got hit so hard.